Okay, so the first question, Ella, is would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and your previous living arrangements, please?
Yeah. So, I am originally from South London, and I moved to Guildford, which is where I found my husband. So he's Guildford born and bred.
Yeah.
And we started out renting, and then decided that we wanted to save some money in order to buy a house. But in Surrey, house prices are crazy. So we sort of stayed there for longer than we wanted to. Decided we wanted to get married, so used a little bit of that money, and then thought there's nothing more worse than going back to living with parents when you're married. So we rented again for a while, and we found this development. It's 0.8 miles away from where we lived before, so it's literally at the top of the road. And so we saw it as we were coming and going from various places, and saw the sign saying shared ownership by Aster. And my parents actually many years ago did shared ownership with the council.
Okay. Yeah.
30 something years ago, and they bought their house outright now. And yeah, it was something that I didn't even realise they'd done until we chatted with them about this, and they were saying sort of the pros and cons of it all. And to be honest, for us, there was no way that we would be able to buy a house in the sort of area where we are now. And we've got our friends, and our work is sort of perfectly placed for where we are, and the childminder, and just everything about our social lives as well as our working lives are all sort of set here. So that was important.
Really prompted you to looking to buy? What was the, you said about the catalyst earlier about you were renting before, but
so definitely COVID and having a child, they were definitely the things that accelerated the whole thing. We probably would have stayed there if we hadn't had our son. We would have stayed there in rented accommodation until we'd saved up enough, although saving and renting are almost complete opposites. It's almost impossible. That was it, really. That was the thing, the two things, I guess, COVID and a baby that pushed us forward far sooner than we thought.
As well, you just you've got that freedom to do it as you wish, and you're not treading on eggshells, worried like you said there's a crayon mark or something like that. What did you previously know about shared ownership? Were you aware of it, and how did you find out about it?
Well, funnily enough, no. Even though my parents did it, they never really spoke about it. So I guess it was just a given. We were there, and I didn't ask about how the house was funded. It's something that really came up, and they just did it. And I mean, there was once a conversation that they were doing an extension of the kitchen, and they needed to buy a bit more of the property in order to be able to do that, because the way they did it is quite different, I guess, with how they did it back then. But they had to own more of a percentage, and then they obviously requested to make the change. I'm not sure of the ins and outs, but that was the only sort of conversation that was even around shared ownership, I guess. And other than that, I don't know anyone until doing it. A friend at work who's a very close friend, again, I didn't even know that she did shared ownership, but 2 years before, she bought a property in Godalming that is shared ownership. But it only came out when I said to her that we were going to look at shared ownership. So it's obviously around and people are doing it, but for whatever reason, people don't. So I guess you say you're buying a house, you don't say I'm buying a house on shared ownership, or I mean, I do, because I think it's great to get it out there for people to know that you don't have to, in Surrey, you don't have to be earning 3 times your salary in order to be able to afford somewhere that you can put down roots and stay.
So what would you say what freedom do you have in a shared ownership home that you don't in private rented?
Being able to make your mark, it's getting on the property ladder and starting to build some equity, and to give you the option to either, just like in when you buy a house traditionally outright, to give you the option to start putting down some roots, or not. The freedom there then to decide that you want to move on to something else. You don't get that in renting. You don't build equity while you live somewhere. you lose a lot of money because you pay extortionate rates. You're paying someone else's mortgage and some in a lot of instances. So I just think they're so worlds apart. There's so many positives to shared ownership. I mean, yeah, I can't even think of all of them because it just feels like we own a house. It feels so worlds apart from renting a house that's nothing of yours other than the things that are in it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Would you say, with regards to things like the deposit, because you only have to really raise it on the share that you're buying as opposed to the full property price, does that make things easier, would you say? Because it's not having to, like you said earlier on, save for years and years and years and years and then finally get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge. I mean, the only way that we'd buy in Surrey was shared ownership, and we had a decent deposit. So we had about 30 grand. I think it's nice to have an area where there's the ability for normal people that have just regular jobs that, you know, aren't earning huge amounts to be able to just live in a similar way to those people, you know, to have the same access to things, and to be sort of treated in the same way. I think it's great to be able for everyone to be able to access it. And it varies from wherever you live, but it enables normal people to own a house.
Do you have any future plans for your shared ownership home?
Ideally, the plan is to staircase until we own the full property. So that's the plan. I guess the hardest part of that is obviously finding the kind of the money in order to buy extra percentages. But we're sort of at the point where we're still putting a bit of money aside.